Hi there, I'm Katie Morton. I'm an intuitive and an energy healer.
And I'm Jennifer Palmer. I'm an intuitive and energy healer and owner of Nourishing Journey.
In Columbia, Maryland.
Hey, thank you.
You're welcome. So today we're going to talk about the signs you are spiritually woke.
Sitting like this does not mean you're woke.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
I know a lot of people who are spiritual and they have spiritual gifts.
Yes.
But it doesn't necessarily make them woke. Dun, dun, dun. So what does that mean?
Well, let's find out. Okay. So the first thing that we were thinking would be important in determining if you really feel like you're on the woke path, because it's ongoing. It's not something that you just wake up and you're woke. There's so many layers to the waking process, and I really don't think that anyone finishes it.
That's right. So back to my comment about knowing a lot of people who aren't woke, they're waking. We're all waking.
We're all waking.
It's a process. Yeah.
Yes.
No one is ultimately just like, I'm woke, I'm done.
I know. Seriously ongoing.
Yep.
But one of the best things that you can do for yourself is to work on your mindfulness. And we were trying to figure out, well, what does that even really mean? And one of the biggest things is deeply questioning your thoughts and your paradigms. You know, so many times we look at something or a situation going on in our lives or in the world or with somebody else, and we think that we have the answers or that we have the woke perspective, when really all we're doing is operating from a really weird belief or something that's not true.
Or it might be something that's a really normal belief, and some traditional beliefs are some of the least woke because they've just been ongoing for so long, and the world changes, and then the beliefs get entrenched and not questioned, and so it's important, even when it seems like, well, everybody knows that XYZ, that's a red flag.
Yeah, I know.
You know that if everybody thinks something, anyway, but this is about your personal, we'll get to groupthink later, about your personal inner world. A lot of us think all day long and we just believe everything we think, and it's just this ticker tape of thoughts that, you just don't question them. It's really important to become the witness and the observer of your own mind. And when people are struggling emotionally, the first thing I tell them is to journal their thoughts on paper, because then they're able to just actually look at it from a distance perspective and get to that deeply questioning their thoughts instead of just believing them.
Yeah, definitely. And then once you start questioning all your thoughts, you start realizing how many of your beliefs and your thoughts are just extremely limiting. They're keeping you from really doing anything. So the next step really is to figure out, well, am I working from limiting beliefs? Mm-hmm. Our thoughts and experiences, our paradigms create a belief system. And, most things that we think or believe might have some truth to it, or maybe a lot of non-truth, depending on what it is you're believing or where you're coming from. But there's always other ways to see things, and so if you want to look at the world and be like, well, that person believes X, this person believes Y, they're looking at the same situation, it doesn't mean that it's wrong on either side, really. It's just very limiting. Mm-hmm. And it's not whole, it's not expansive.
Yeah, it's important to try to see other people's perspectives and your own, and evaluate all of it from a higher level. But also, limiting beliefs can also be subconscious, and that's some of the stuff that's trickier to root out. Mm-hmm. But it's important to go there and figure it out. So for example, if you feel like, I'm a really capable person, but for some reason I keep failing, miserable, there's probably some subconscious beliefs that are causing this miserable failure, and you have to root out what those are. And some typical ones, for women, a lot of women are like, well, I can't, go out and conquer the world until I lose these last 10 pounds. And it's like, no, you don't.
Or just even, I'm not good enough unless I'm a size 2.
Right, or just in general, people have wounds of not feeling good enough, mm-hmm. or not being enough. And so it's important to always try to work on those subconscious beliefs. You can do that via access consciousness, which is a style of healing. You can do it with hypnosis. You can do it with I'm going to say affirmations, but that's a tricky one because, you know, sometimes they don't work or they backfire. Should we talk about that real quick? Yeah.
I mean, you can, but yeah.
Because sometimes, let's say, for example, you have a limiting belief of I'm not good enough, and then you come up with a reverse affirmation that's like, I am good enough, but then there's always that, I am worthy, but if you always have a kickback of like, no, you're not, subconsciously, you have to do the healing to uproot that. So that might be via energy healing is an excellent way to root out unhelpful subconscious beliefs.
Another way to get to unhelpful subconscious beliefs is to imagine something that you want or that you're striving for. And then when you're in that space of that wanting and seeing it like it's real, this is like it, my business is successful, or I'm this, or I'm that, or I found the man of my dreams, or whatever it is, you know. Well, what would the fears then pop up? So, you know, maybe you found the man of your dreams and suddenly you're like, but would I be good enough? Would he leave me? Would he cheat on me? Like the fears start coming up, and that could be keeping you, those probably are keeping you from attaining what it is you're looking for. So those limiting beliefs are really important.
Yeah, and so if that does happen, you could use the violet flame to burn through them. So what you do is you just call forth the violet flame. You just imagine a purple flame, and you torch all of your unhelpful beliefs in the violet flame. It's just a visualization of just burning through them.
Yeah.
And anytime something comes up, flick it into the flame.
Flick it.
Last point, have positivity and faith. Yeah, that could be difficult in this world, but you just, look, what's the alternative? Be negative and just be like, nope.
It's not helping your cause.
Right?
Be your own cheerleader.
Having positivity and faith is going to make you feel better. Being negative is going to make you feel worse. And some people argue for their negativity and they say, I'm just being realistic. And it's like, well, no, not necessarily. So you might as well just pick positivity.
Holistically positive. You don't want to be unrealistic.
Right.
But at the same time, you want to focus on a positive mindset towards whatever it is you're working towards.
Right.
Yeah.
Solve your problems, be realistic, but also don't necessarily don't play devil's advocate to your life constantly. You're just going to make yourself miserable.
All right. So then we move on to discernment. So when you're when you're deciding to become more of an independent thinker and not follow groupthink, which, just like Katie said, every time I see something as more like a mainstream viewpoint or belief, I really question it because I feel like it's more of an indoctrination than just everyone coming to this like more naturally. So independent thinking and being, really, really important. Question everything.
And that is how you become authentic. So a lot of people wonder, like, who am I really? Who am I supposed to be? Well, you can't live into the fullness of the purpose for your life until you become an independent thinker, because that's how you come to realize your dreams and who you actually are outside of the pressure and influence of people around you.
Yeah, and that also gets into, I know we were talking earlier about labels, well, I am this, or I am that. I am a mom, so I should think these things, or I should do these things, or I'm a wife, so this is how I am supposed to act and be in society. And is it true? Is it true to you? And is it something that actually really aligns with you? Because so many times we end up resentful and not very woke because we're not in a very mindful space, because we're holding all this anger, because we're not living in alignment with our core being and what it is we're actually here to do or feel or experience. So independent thinking is a must.
Truth. Yeah. And that brings us second point. Others' opinions.
Nope.
Yeah.
This was hard for me, especially in the beginning. It's a lot easier now. But it was a really difficult task to let go of worrying about what others might think.
Mm-hmm. It's natural to want approval. Our brains are wired that way.
Groupthink.
To fit in with society. And there is a fear of rejection if we are different, if we think if we go against the stream, if we're against the crowd, it's, it causes fear that we're going to lose friends or loved ones. And you know what? That's true. However, it's one of those deathbed regret things. Did you live a life true to yourself, or did you just follow the crowd your whole life? So it's challenging, and it requires a lot of bravery to discount the opinions of other people. But it's also crucial to living a fulfilled life and to have a shot at true happiness and fulfillment. So anytime you feel like, I'm afraid to speak up, or I'm afraid to think or feel differently about an issue, it's another just big old red flag, something to look out for.
Yeah, I often, when I'm worried about posting something on social media or doing something through like Nourishing Journey, or when we're thinking about doing a video and what people might think, we want to make sure that we're providing a service, and we are only here to accomplish what we are here to accomplish, and what other people are here to do is different than what you're here to do. And so, we just have to be really mindful of when you start feeling fear, like, should I do this or should I not? Then just coming back in and be like, well, what am I here for? Is this in alignment with what I'm here for?
Yeah,
and if it is, then
your
just
mission.
do it. Yeah. And who cares what other people think?
And I'll just give an example of some pressure that we have felt when, for example, we were running a group event and some people came who were very passionate about a particular political cause, and they were extremely vocal, and they were telling everyone in the room that if they don't do something about this issue that they were so passionate about, that you're just a terrible person. And what came out of that was the idea that we're all here on different missions, and if they're very passionate about that cause, then they need to go all in on it. But they can't expect other people to drop everything they're doing on their own missions and go all in for what this person believes, because it's just not correct.
Yeah.
We all have to, we do all have different missions, and so, there's so many different areas of the planet that need help cleaning up, and we all have our jobs to do. So don't get distracted by other people's passion about their missions. Congratulate them, pat them on the back, but you don't.
Or lack of passion for yours.
Right. You don't necessarily have to join their club,
Right.
And, anytime you're in the grocery store, whatever, and somebody says, would you like to donate $1 to this charity? You don't have to always give in to those pressures. If you have certain passions where your time and resources need to go, you don't have to jump on everybody else's bandwagon.
Yeah, love it.
I'm off my soapbox now. Okay.
Which actually goes right into the next bullet point, doing research beyond mainstream sources, because when we start questioning groupthink and what the mainstream, we call it mainstream because it's what most people think. When it's important to look beyond that, because oftentimes it is just propaganda, or it's just some indoctrination, or just very limited thinking, and you're not going to really awaken to what's going on unless you start questioning it and doing research beyond all of that. So go down the rabbit holes. Don't always believe everything you read. Really discern it. Follow, which brings us to the next one, follow your unbiased intuition and not your wounds. A lot of times people do research based on the wounding that they've received or their experience, and then they're looking to validate that experience as opposed to finding truth. So the big thing, you're always wanting to find truth. When you're woke, you want truth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and sometimes it's a bit hard to find and you have to dig for it. Just tiny little example about doing research beyond mainstream sources. Like take medical journals, for example. It's come out that a lot of that information is very corrupt because medical studies are often funded by special interest groups who want to sell things.
Imagine that.
I know, shocking. So, you might think that you're doing all of your homework, but you always have to go one step further. And if your intuition and your experience is telling you one thing and the research is saying something else, question that, go with your gut and what's true for you, and don't always just be like, well, this mainstream publication says I'm wrong, even though all my experiences are counter to that. You gotta
Right.
But I mean, how many of us we've all done it, right? Like, well, I know Honey soothes a sore throat, but the Robitussin ad says, it doesn't work, so.
Nothing against Robitussin.
I know, well, kind of, anyway. Sorry, we're not going to be sponsored by Robitussin anytime soon. Oh well, so yeah.
All right, so that brings us to inner work. We wanted to end with some talk about inner work. So the most important thing that you can do to really keep awakening, or to even start awakening, is to heal yourself and expand. So important. Really look within. Everything is within. It doesn't matter what's happening out there. Look within. When you have triggers, and that's the next bullet point, when you have triggers, we like to often just be like, that happened and it really upset me.
You said, it's me off.
I did, but I was trying to be nice.
It was rated E. Sorry, go on.
But it's really not even about that. What consciousness work is all about, what awakening is about, is realizing that what needs to be looked at is within. And all that is happening on the outside to show you that.
Yeah, anytime you get upset about something, it's never about the external circumstances. It's always about your wounds and then your resulting perspective and how your mind is processing it, and then the upset that results from that. So the core of it is getting to the bottom of what is the history here in my life that's causing this upset? Where have I been hurt and rejected in the past that's making this upset come up now when in a seemingly unrelated situation?
And it doesn't mean that the situation is necessarily okay. So if you see something wrong happening, it doesn't mean you're like, oh, the universe is just telling me to look within. There's nothing to do here, nothing to see here. It's not that. But if you're triggered, it's one thing to see it and be like, I think I need to do something about that. But it's another thing to just be like, I hate you, you're terrible, you suck.
Not productive versus...
Not at all. You've got some work to do if that's how you're reacting to something. And I'm not saying I've never done that.
Truth.
I've had some work to do. But when you're really doing that inner work, you're not triggered as easily. You move to action, but you're not triggered into such a negative response.
And you can much more effectively come to productive solutions and set boundaries and fix broken relationships if you're not triggered as easily.
And you see truth more easily when you're not triggered. Because usually when we're triggered, we're reacting through those wounds and we are not seeing truth. We are seeing the wound.
Yeah, and to define triggered, it's just an emotional reactivity. Something happens and you kind of snap, and there's not a lot of thought there. It touched a wound. So once you can heal yourself and expand your consciousness and come to a calmer perspective, you can work on, fixing whatever's outside of you if it needs fixing. Or sometimes you might realize that it didn't need fixing at all. It was just the way you were looking at it was kind of off.
Yeah.
And so anytime you feel righteous indignation, again, we should have called this slideshow red flags. That's a red flag. If you feel like a victim, red flag. That's a problem. And you have to look within before you can effectively solve the issue if it needs solving.
Yeah, there's no power when you're seeing something through the eyes of your victim. Yeah, there's no power there. And so, we did talk about this already a little bit, but introspection versus projection, so that kind of goes along with it.
Yeah, meaning just look inside yourself versus projecting your negative emotions outside of yourself onto others.
And then always see a bigger picture, because it's usually much bigger than the way you're looking at it. And I always tell people to kind of rise above the situation and look down so you can see as many of the pieces of it as possible, all the different perspectives that you can, that you could possibly look at, and then come to more of a holistic viewpoint of what's actually happening, instead of being kind of in the weeds with the trigger.
Yeah, and I like to say, if you try to see a bigger picture and you're still upset, then you have to rise higher. You're still myopically in the weeds about it. So just keep trying to find a higher perspective until you're not upset anymore.
And
That is that. So if you would like to find us online, you can go to nourishing-journey.com or katiemorton.com, or you can come visit us here at Nourishing Journey in Columbia, Maryland.
Yeah. All right.
All right, and we try to do Facebook Lives and YouTube Lives every Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so come and find us.
Yeah, right now we're doing 3 lives at the same time. So we're doing Katie's Facebook, my Nourishing Journey Facebook, and Nourishing Journey YouTube. We're just trying to pull it from all different angles. So
Yeah, so find us on,
Yeah.
on the socials. All right.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.